You've been told the Cold War was won purely through diplomacy and nuclear deterrence, but what if the most decisive victory was stolen from 3 miles under the Pacific Ocean? We are declassifying the files of a covert CIA team who built a mechanical leviathan to pull off the greatest heist in human history. They didn't build it to mine the ocean floor, they built it to steal a fully armed Soviet nuclear submarine right out from under Moscow's nose. God bless American engineering. The year is 1968. The Cold War is at its absolute freezing point and the stakes are the survival of the human race. In March, the Soviet Golf II-class submarine K-129 slipped out of base, heavily armed for patrol. But somewhere in the vast North Pacific, something went catastrophically wrong. The K-129, its 98 crew members and 3 nuclear-armed ballistic missiles vanished without a single distress call. The Soviet Navy panicked. They launched a massive armada, frantically searching a million square miles of ocean. But they found nothing. Relying on outdated active sonar, they were blind. Eventually, the Soviets gave up, assuming the ocean had swallowed their dark secrets forever. But they drastically underestimated American intelligence, because while the Soviets searched blind, the United States Navy was listening, and what they heard would trigger a multi-billion-dollar game of underwater chess. The United States possessed a highly classified network of underwater listening devices called SOSUS. Analysts combing through acoustic tapes found exactly what they were looking for, a massive, unmistakable signature of an implosion on March 8, 1968. Using brilliant mathematical triangulation, American naval intelligence pinpointed the K-129. It was sitting 1,560 miles northwest of Hawaii, resting at a crushing depth of 16,500 feet, over 3 miles straight down. To verify, the USS Halibut, a highly modified spy sub, snapped thousands of photos of the wreck. For the CIA, this was the ultimate intelligence goldmine. Down in that dark abyss sat Soviet nuclear warheads, advanced sonar systems, and the holy grail of espionage, crystal cryptographic machines and intact codebooks. If America got those, they could read the Soviet Navy's mail. But there was a massive problem, yaar. How do you salvage 1,750 tons from that depth without sparking World War III? You do the impossible. Enter the CIA and a completely khatarnak plan dubbed Project Azorian. Approved personally by President Richard Nixon in 1969, the CIA was tasked with an engineering miracle. The Navy wanted to send small submersibles, but the CIA wanted the whole damn sub. The cost soared to $800 million, about $4 billion today. To pull this off, they couldn't just send a Navy salvage ship. The Soviets were always watching the seas. They needed an impenetrable cover story. Who better to front a crazy multi-billion-dollar oceanic enterprise than eccentric American billionaire Howard Hughes? Hughes claimed his company was building a revolutionary ship to mine manganese nodules from the ocean floor. It was the ultimate American deception. The CIA even funded fake scientific research to make the deep-sea mining industry look legitimate. Under this brilliant disguise, they constructed a mechanical leviathan, the 618-foot Hughes Glomar Explorer. But the actual engineering hidden inside was terrifyingly dangerous. The ship featured a massive internal cavity called a moon pool, allowing them to pull the Soviet submarine up inside the hull, completely hidden from spy satellites. But the biggest threat was the physics of the ocean itself. Lowering 3 miles of rigid steel pipe connected to a massive steel claw named Clementine was incredibly volatile. If the surface ship rode up on a wave, the dynamic tension would instantly snap the rigid pipe. Snapping under a 17 million pound load would release kinetic energy equivalent to a 8 kiloton nuclear explosion, literally obliterating the ship. To prevent this, American engineers invented a mind-blowing heave compensation system. Massive 65-inch hydraulic rams acted as giant shock absorbers, keeping the lifting platform perfectly stable while the ship pitched and rolled. To keep Clementine a secret, they loaded the giant claw underwater. But all this cutting-edge tech couldn't prepare them for July 4, 1974. Right as the Glomar Explorer parked over the wreck and prepared to lower Clementine into the abyss, the Soviet Navy showed up. The tension was thicker than submarine armor. A massive Soviet surveillance ship, the Chazma, arrived on the scene, soon joined by aggressive naval tugs. They relentlessly shadowed the American ship, sailing dangerously close, sometimes within 50 feet, to intimidate the crew and figure out what this bizarre vessel was doing. It was a psychological war of nerves. The CIA mission director knew that if the Soviet tugs rammed them, the lateral movement would snap the pipe string and destroy everything. Then, on July 18th, the situation went critical.
the Soviets deployed a military helicopter that began buzzing the Glomar Explorer at low altitude. The CIA director was absolutely terrified. The Soviets were preparing to drop an armed boarding party onto the deck. The Americans had to defend their ship without firing a single shot.
The mission director ordered the crew to immediately drag heavy wooden crates and debris all over the helipad, stacking them to physically block the Soviet chopper from finding a landing zone. Down below decks, a specialized CIA team was placed on high alert, barricaded in the secure control room, prepared to execute the emergency destruction protocol. Their grim mandate was to incinerate all classified mission documents if the Soviets forced their way on board. It was a historic standoff. But the CIA's cover story held strong. The Soviets watched the Americans pulling up useless rocks and, convinced it was just Howard Hughes wasting his fortune on a foolish mining experiment, they sailed away. With the coast clear, Clementine finally reached the ocean floor. On August 1, 1974, they began pulling the 1,750-ton prize toward the surface. The greatest heist in history was working. The crew could taste victory. But exactly halfway up, the ocean demanded its toll. Disaster struck with zero warning. The colossal structural tines of the Clementine claw had been forged from maraging steel. While exceptionally strong, this alloy suffers from low ductility, making it highly susceptible to brittle fracture under dynamic stress. Under the immense stress of the lift, several of the massive steel hooks suddenly fractured. Crack! As the initial tines shattered, the immense load transferred, causing a catastrophic zipper effect. In a heartbreaking instant, the captured submarine broke apart. A massive 100-foot section, comprising 2/3 of the K-129, including the precious codebooks, decoding machines, and ballistic missiles, sheared violently away. It plummeted back down to the seafloor, disintegrating upon impact. The sudden loss of millions of pounds generated a devastating kinetic shockwave that rocketed up the rigid pipe string, nearly tearing the ship apart. The ultimate cryptographic prize was gone forever. But don't click away yet, because what happened next is the most patriotic twist of the entire Cold War. Despite the catastrophic structural failure, the American crew refused to quit. They wrestled the violently shaking heavy lift system under control and managed to maintain their grip on the remaining 38-foot forward bow section of the K-129. On August 8, 1974, this piece was successfully hauled up into the Glomar Explorer's dry moon pool. The massive gates sealed, the water was pumped out, and the CIA got a look at their prize. Inside that shattered steel tomb, they found intact Soviet nuclear-tipped torpedoes. CIA hazardous materials teams had to navigate severe plutonium contamination caused by the explosive lenses detonating when the sub originally sank. They gained crucial metallurgical data that refined U.S. anti-submarine warfare capabilities for decades. But amidst the twisted metal, radiation, and weapons of mass destruction, the CIA team discovered something else: the physical remains of 6 Soviet submariners. Now, they could have just tossed them overboard, but that is not how America operates. On September 4, 1974, deep in the lonely expanse of the Pacific Ocean, the crew of the Hughes Glomar Explorer halted all highly classified operations. They carefully placed the remains of the 6 Soviet sailors into specially weighted metal caskets to contain lingering radioactivity. Then, in complete secrecy, they conducted a formal, solemn military burial at sea. They draped the caskets in the Soviet naval ensign, played the Soviet national anthem, and offered respectful prayers in English and Russian before committing their Cold War adversaries back to the deep. The CIA actually filmed this honorable ceremony. Years later, in 1992, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, CIA Director Robert Gates traveled to Moscow and personally presented this deeply moving tape to Russian President Boris Yeltsin as a profound gesture of goodwill. It proved that even in the darkest shadows of global espionage, American honor prevails. But how did the world find out about this secret? In a twist straight out of a Hollywood comedy, the greatest secret of the Cold War was undone by a petty burglary. In June 1974, armed thieves broke into a Summa Corporation office in Los Angeles, stealing highly classified memos that directly linked Howard Hughes, the CIA, and the true purpose of the Glomar Explorer.
The desperate police hunt created a massive paper trail, and brilliant journalists eventually cracked the story wide open in early 1975, splashing the secret across the Los Angeles Times and New York Times. The U.S. government was completely cornered. Admitting they stole a sovereign nuclear sub could trigger a shooting war. Lying to the courts regarding freedom of information requests broke federal law. So the CIA lawyers invented a genius legal doctrine. When asked for documents, they legally replied that they could neither confirm nor deny the existence of the records. This brilliant loophole became famously known as the Glomar response. Project Azorian pushed the absolute boundaries of human engineering, proving that when American ingenuity, raw bravery, and sheer determination combine, nothing on Earth or 3 miles beneath it is impossible. If you felt a surge of patriotic pride watching this declassified history unfold, smash that like button, drop a comment with what covert military operation we should expose next, and subscribe to Plotting History. Until next time, keep plotting.